Hello and welcome back to Supposedly Fun. My name is Greg. I am here today to do a book haul for the month of August. This is exciting because this is a unique book haul for two reasons. The first one is that this is a fairly small book haul. I feel like my last two or so book hauls have been fairly large, but this one is only 4 books. So I'm going to get to spend a little bit more time on each individual book. I won't have to feel like I'm racing through to get this video done in a timely manner, and that is really nice. The other thing that is really exciting about this and unique is that of these 4 books, I've already finished 2 of them, and I'm halfway through the 3rd. So by the end of this month, I will have read 75% of the books that I brought into my library, and the 4th one is something I really do want to read. So there's a chance that when I come around to doing my book haul revisit for August in a year, I will have read all of these books. That remains to be seen. Even if I end up only reading 3 out of 4 by next August, I'm gonna feel very smug. This is not something that usually happens to me, so I'm really excited about it. And let's get into the books so we can talk about them. The first one is Less by Andrew Sean Greer. This is published by Back Bay Books. I have talked a lot about this book lately because I read it as part of my Pulitzer Prize project. Actually, I reread it as part of my Pulitzer Prize project, and I actually was listening to it on audio. I had told myself that I am not going to try to listen to my Pulitzer Prize project books on audio, but I figured since this one was a reread that it would probably be fine, and I didn't think there would be a whole lot that I would actually want to reference in the book. Turns out, didn't work that way. It's really hard to take notes off of an audiobook and to get specific quotes and things like that. So I found myself wanting to have a copy of the book. And I really thought about it, and I could have tried to get a copy from the library, but I have quietly been wanting to have a copy of every book that has won the Pulitzer Prize for fiction. So really, this was just a really good excuse for me to go to my local used bookstore and grab a copy. They had one for $8, so that's not bad. So it's not a book that I would have wanted to have in my library on its own, but just for the fact that it is a winner of the Pulitzer Prize, I wanted to make sure I have it. Now, if you follow this channel, you've heard me talk about this a lot because I did a full deep dive on this book, talking about what it's about, what I think about it, and if it deserved to win the Pulitzer Prize, if there's something unintentionally problematic about aspects of the book. I'm going to link that video in the description box down below so you can check out all of the details about Less. Here, I'm just going to tell you what this book is about, and because I do it in all of my book hauls, we will read a little bit from the opening of this book. So, Less follows a writer named Arthur Less. He is about to turn 50 and is really not happy about that. He is a gay man, and he is also stressing out because his casual lover of 9 years, a man named Freddie Pallou, who is younger than him, is going to be getting married to another man. In order to not go to the wedding, and in order to not think about the fact that Freddie is marrying another man, in order to not think about his birthday, Arthur Less accepts a series of invitations that are going to take him all around the world. He's literally running from his problems. Of course, he does not stop thinking about these things. He continues to think about them nonstop as he travels the world, and ultimately, that's pretty much what it is about. And again, I have a whole lot of thoughts about this book in my Pulitzer Prize deep dive. I go on at length about it and all the nitty-gritty details about what Arthur is doing, what it means, why it potentially caught the eye of the Pulitzer Prize jury and the Pulitzer Prize board that led to it winning the prize, and whether or not I think it should have won the Pulitzer Prize for fiction. I finished this in July. It was, I think, the last book that I finished in the month of July. And I also read the sequel this month. Not great. I'm going to have a link to my most recent Friday Reads video for a different book in this book haul, because I talked about it in that one. I talked about the sequel in my most recent Friday Reads video. So that will again be linked down below if you'd like my thoughts on the sequel, which we'll be publishing on September 20th. Let's leave it at that for Less and just do the opening of the book. Chapter 1, Less at first, which has this beautiful illustration of a clock. From where I sit, the story of Arthur Less is not so bad. Look at him, seated primly on the hotel lobby's plush round sofa, blue suit and white shirt, legs knee-crossed so that one polished loafer hangs free of its heel. The pose of a young man. His slim shadow is, in fact, still that of his younger self, but at nearly 50, he is like those bronze statues in public parks that, despite one lucky knee rubbed raw by school children, discolor beautifully until they match the trees. So has Arthur Less, once pink and gold with youth, faded like the sofa he sits on, tapping one finger on his knee and staring at the grandfather clock. And that is the opening of Less by Andrew Sean Greer, a Pulitzer Prize winner. And again, my whole deep dive on it will be in the description box down below. The next book that I hauled in the month of August is The Queens of Sarmiento Park by Camila Sosa Villada. This is translated by Kit Maude. In the United States, this book is published under the title Bad Girls, which is actually probably closer to the title when it was originally published in Argentina, which is Las Malas. And I believe in other countries it has been published along more similar lines. This is the UK edition, which has the title The Queens of Sarmiento Park. I am going to put a picture of the American version up here for you. It looks like something you would find in the erotica section, which is kind of appropriate given the tone of the book, but I'm sure you can understand why I gravitated toward the UK version instead of that. So this is the one I got. I ordered it from Blackwell's and had it shipped here. This is the selection for August and September, or one of two selections for August and September for the LGBTQ in translation read along. I will put links to the Discord server where we talk about these books in the description box down below if you'd like to check it out. We have a great group of people, and I'm really looking forward to getting to the other book we selected for this 2-month period, which I've been holding for September. This was pretty specifically selected to tie into Women in Translation Month. Camila Sosa Villada is a trans woman, and trans women are women, so it qualifies for Women in Translation Month. So I've already read this one as well, and I'm going to link my most recent Friday Reads video down below. That's the one. This is the book that ties in with that as well, because I finished it and I talked about it a little bit there. This, by the way, is a really beautiful cover. You obviously can't feel it, but it has almost the texture of canvas, which makes it very pleasing to hold, in addition to just being a beautiful cover. So in this book, there is a character who is named after the protagonist, who is a transgender woman in Argentina who is forced into sex work. She wants to try to get by without doing it, but is finding it hard to get a job and get by. So she ends up getting involved in sex work to get by, and meets a bunch of other trans women who do the same thing. They cluster in Sarmiento Park to sort of protect each other and meet up with each other every night. And they are overseen by Auntie Encarna, who is a 178-year-old woman. This book has touches and elements of magical realism in it. They get a little soft in the middle and then kind of come back a little bit toward the end. Interestingly, the parts of the book that are the most realistic are the parts that are about the protagonists. This is frequently described as autofiction, fiction that is inspired by Camila Sosa Villada's life. Camila Sosa Villada has pushed back on that and said that this is absolutely not memoir. I find that interesting because it does seem like, reading the book, that it is very heavily based on someone's experiences. I can see that it would be possible that this is inspired by things that she witnessed in her life and maybe experienced, this is a fictionalized version of it, but how fictionalized it is, how real it is up for interpretation. There are definitely magical things in this book, and obviously those would be exaggerated well out of reality. And it's about those experiences. Auntie Encarna has this home. She tries to protect a lot of the younger trans women and create a safe haven for them. There's a beautiful line early on in the book that the greatest gift Auntie Encarna gave to them was peace. And I thought that was really beautiful. In the beginning of the book, Auntie Encarna finds a baby boy abandoned in the park and essentially left for dead. Auntie Encarna takes the boy home and becomes his mother, essentially. And it's about how they have to hide the boy from the world a little bit, but obviously you can't do that because eventually the kid's gonna need to go to school, and the ways in which their home is targeted by people and it's attempting to have a normal life brings violence upon the house and people who want retribution, which is something that LGBTQ people of all shapes and sizes and stripes experience, and the trans community in particular struggles with. It's a really beautiful book from that perspective. It is also mostly about the protagonist who happens to share a name with the author. And I liked this book a lot. I didn't love it in the end. I really loved the first 30 pages, and then I ended up just kind of liking the book by the end. And again, I have a lot more to say about it in my Friday Reads video, so I'll link that down below if you'd like to check it out. But yeah, I'm glad that I read this book. It is certainly a really interesting book to talk about, and I hope more people will discover it. Let's do the opening of this book. The night air in the park is dense, dark, and freezing. The ancient trees, recently stripped of their leaves, look askance to the heavens, pleading for some obscure boon essential to vegetation. A group of travestis makes its rounds in the shadows cast by the branches. They almost seem to move as one body, cells from the same animal, or members of a pack. Potential Johns cruise by in their cars, slowing down to inspect the group before selecting one with the wave of an arm. The chosen woman answers their call. Night after night, nothing changes. And the reason I say that the US title and cover might be a little bit more in keeping with the tone of this book is that in the author forward, Camila Sosa Villada talks about how travesti is a word that she's really deliberately choosing to use. It is a slur in Argentina and has been. And there is a bit of a movement to reclaim the word, but people have moved on to more like politically correct words, things that have better connotations. And she is saying that she is deliberately choosing to use that word because it more accurately reflects the violence and the attitude that has been thrown at these women. And she is not going to try to pacify the reader by using this other word. She's very, it's tempting to say in your face about the realities, but it's the reality. Like, she is not going to compromise this vision of reality, and I kind of admire that. So that is a little bit of background about one of the words that you encountered in that opening paragraph as well. This is published by Virago in the UK. I don't know who the US publisher is because I got my version from the UK, but very much worth your time if you would like to check it out. The next book is the one that I am currently reading, and it is The Last Unicorn by Peter S. Beagle. This is a little bit outside my typical area. I don't read a lot of science fiction and fantasy. So the story of this is that my niece is 13 years old in New York City, living with my sister, and she has had a summer reading project. And my sister and I have been trying to help her find books that she will be interested in reading. She's not assigned specific books. She just has to keep a log of things that she reads. So we have been trying to get her to read some things, and what we finally decided to do is, okay, pick a book and we will all read it together. I had a really hard time getting her to pick a book. She selected The Last Unicorn. So that's why it's here. I used to have the movie version of The Last Unicorn on VHS. I think we taped it off of the TV when I was a kid, and it terrified me. The Red Bull in particular. It just scared me, but also the harpy. Yeah, if you've seen the movie or read the book, you know what I'm talking about. That was pretty traumatizing for a sensitive little soul like I was as a kid. So I haven't really thought about The Last Unicorn in all the years since, and I had vaguely known that it was a book, but didn't really know much about it. Again, because the movie kind of traumatized me, I had stayed away. So when she showed interest in this, my initial reaction was like, oh God, we're gonna read that. But I'm not gonna push back, this is the book she chose, this is what she's interested in. And I think when someone, especially a young reader, expresses interest in something, you have to try to foster that interest, and maybe if they like it, they'll expand into other things. But so my sister actually sent this to me. I didn't buy it. My sister had this sent to me from Northshire Bookstore in Vermont. That used to be my favorite bookstore. I haven't visited it in a while, but I have my bookmark that I'm using from that store because I just had that in my stash. So she purchased a copy from them and had them ship it to me, and here it is for my buddy read with my sister and my niece, I guess you could call it. So when it arrived, I was looking at the quotes, and there's a quote from Ursula K. Le Guin and Tad Williams and Patrick Rothfuss, and I started realizing this is like a really popular book that a lot of people love. So I was completely unaware of that. One, because I don't really read a lot of science fiction and fantasy, and two, because I've kind of avoided thinking about this because it traumatized me as a child. And if you're interested in what, say, Ursula K. Le Guin says, it's Peter S. Beagle illuminates with his own particular magic. If you're not familiar with this story, by the way, Peter S. Beagle also wrote the screenplay for the film adaptation, which is an animated movie. I believe it came out in 1980 or 1982, somewhere in that zip code. So this was published in the 1960s, and apparently has also been the source of a legal battle between Peter S. Beagle, and I don't know all the specifics of it, but there's a lot of interesting stuff as background to this book. But anyway, the story is about a unicorn who has been living in this wood all by herself. In this world, unicorns are sort of solitary creatures. They tend to be on their own. They are immortal, so they just kind of exist, and time doesn't really mean anything to them. So she has been alone in her wood for a long time. When two hunters are passing by, she overhears them talking, and one of them says that a unicorn must live here because you can kind of see the magic in the way that the other animals in the wood react, and the way the wood, the seasons don't seem to change in this forest. But the other one says that unicorns don't exist anymore. Nobody has seen a unicorn in a really long time. This makes her curious. At first, she wants to stay in her forest and not leave, but then doubts start to plague her, and she gets curious and starts wondering, how could I possibly be the last unicorn? There have to be others. So she leaves to go find other unicorns, and of course ends up on an adventure. It's sort of your classic hero's quest. And along the way, she is captured. She meets a magician named Schmendrick, who is not a great magician, but perhaps has the talent to be, and a whole other cast of characters. And she hears a legend about a king who has a Red Bull, not the energy drink. That energy drink has ruined this book in some ways, but who has a Red Bull who has done something to the unicorns, and she is trying to find out what. It is a beautifully written book. I can't wait to finish this. I'm about halfway through right now, and can't wait to do more. This is published by ROC. And let's do a little bit of the opening. Chapter 1. The unicorn lived in a lilac wood, and she lived all alone. She was very old, though she did not know it, and she was no longer the careless color of sea foam, but rather the color of snow falling on a moonlit night. But her eyes were still clear and unwearied, and she still moved like a shadow on the sea. And that is the opening of The Last Unicorn by Peter S. Beagle. I look forward to finishing this and talking more about it. That takes us to the only book in this book haul that I have not read yet, or started yet, and that is Nightcrawling by Leila Mottley. This was a surprise. The day that I walked into my local used bookstore to pick up a copy of Less, I stopped and looked at their new release area, and Nightcrawling was there, and I was shocked. Usually it takes a while for a new release to end up in their store, and it was just hanging out on the display right there. So how could I possibly pass it up? This book was released in April or May, maybe June at the latest. It is really notable because it is on the long list for the Booker Prize. I will put a link to my reaction video to the Booker Prize long list down below. This is one of the ones that I'm really hoping to read. So I couldn't believe it was there. If it means anything to you, it has been blessed by Oprah. The one annoying thing about this is, I don't know why, but when they get new releases, they always cover them in that sort of library plastic. So the book becomes really shiny. And you know what? That's fine. It is what it is. The thing that really bothers me is that you see this price tag that they put on it. Well, that's underneath the plastic. I can't get rid of that, because you can't undo this library plastic from it. So that sticker is just going to live there for all time, and I'm going to have to learn to live with it, because I'm not going to try to damage the cover to undo all of this just to get rid of that. It's fine. It'll be fine. I got a new release in a used bookstore. I will deal with it. Really excited to read this book. Heard a lot of really good things about it. The reactions that I've heard are mixed, mostly have to do with subject matter being a little bit depressing. I haven't heard much that's negative about the actual book or the contents of the book other than that it's a little bit depressing. So what is it about? Let's just do a quick read of the description and go from there. A dazzling novel about a young black woman who walks the streets of Oakland, a debut that announces a blazingly original voice. Kiara and her brother Marcus are scraping by in an East Oakland apartment complex optimistically called the Regal High. Both have dropped out of high school, their family fractured by death and prison. But while Marcus clings to his dream of rap stardom, Kiara hunts for work to pay their rent, which has more than doubled, and to keep the 9-year-old boy next door, abandoned by his mother, safe and fed. One night, what begins as a drunken misunderstanding with a stranger turns into the job Kiara never imagined wanting but now desperately needs: nightcrawling. Her world breaks open even further when her name surfaces in an investigation that exposes her as a key witness in a massive scandal within the Oakland Police Department. Rich with raw beauty, electrifying intensity, and piercing vulnerability, Nightcrawling marks the stunning arrival of a voice unlike any we have heard before. I believe Leila Mottley is 19. She is the youngest person longlisted for the Booker Prize. That's astonishing. So really looking forward to getting to this book. It is published by Knopf. Let's do the opening of this book, which is dedicated to Oakland and its girls. There is a curse word here. I'm going to avoid the curse because if you follow along, you probably know, but one time ages ago, I had a strike against one of my videos from YouTube for language, and I didn't even curse in that video. Ever since then, I have been really paranoid about cursing in a video, so I'm going to avoid the curse. Just know that I am changing the wording a little bit. The swimming pool is filled with dog dew, and Deke's laughter mocks us at dawn. I've been telling her all week that she's looking like the crackhead she is, laughing at the same joke like it's gonna change. Dee didn't seem to mind that her boyfriend left her, didn't even seem to care when he showed up poolside after making his rounds to every dumpster in the neighborhood last Tuesday, finding feces wrapped up in plastic bags. We heard the splashes at 3 a.m., followed by his shouts about Dee's unfaithful butt. But mostly we heard Dee's cackles, reminding us how hard it is to sleep when you can't distinguish your own footsteps from your neighbors. That is the beginning of Nightcrawling by Leila Mottley, the censored version, I guess. So those are the 4 books that I have brought into my library in the month of August. Again, not a very large book haul, but I've had some big ones this year already, so I was probably due for a smaller one, and one of the books, Less, I had already read in the past and was almost done with my reread. At the time I got this, I just needed something to refer to as I was working on my Pulitzer Prize project. And as I said, I really would like to just have a copy of every Pulitzer book anyway, so that was my excuse to bring it into my library. And I've also already finished The Queens of Sarmiento Park, and I am halfway through The Last Unicorn. Hopefully I will be getting to Nightcrawling soon. We'll see how that goes. If it makes it onto the short list for the Booker Prize, I may try to really prioritize it soon. I would love to get to it soon, but my trip is coming up and I don't know how that's going to work and if I'll manage to make it happen. But if you have thoughts, opinions, or recommendations based on any of these books, let me know in the comment section down below. And as always, I thank you for your time. I really, really do appreciate it, especially if you have made it to this point or if you leave a comment or any of that stuff. It is all very much appreciated. And I will be back. Until next time, happy reading.